Hello, welcome to our Insiders Club videos, and this is the very first one we're shooting. I'm not sure if it's the first one you're going to watch, but it's the very first one that we're shooting, so it's pretty exciting stuff. So today's recipe is the ciabatta loaf that comes out of my new cookbook, which is not out till April of 2016. So we're pretty excited to share this recipe with the Insiders Club early, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. So there's 3 ways to have this ciabatta loaf, so we're going to do all 3 and show you all 3. But first up, we need to make our dough. So what I have here is 30 grams of fresh yeast. You can get this at Continental Grocers normally. If you don't have anyone near you that stocks this, you can ask at a bakery, and they quite often will sell you a piece. Hopefully it's cheap as chips, really cheap. Otherwise, you can replace 30 grams of yeast with 2 teaspoons of dried active yeast that you can get, everywhere. So that's going into the Thermomix bowl. We're adding some water. I think it's 470 grams of water. So we're going to warm the yeast up, and this is to activate the yeast. So luckily we have 37 degrees on the Thermomix, which is the very lowest heat setting. We're going to warm it for 2 minutes. And if it was a cold day, this is an ideal way to activate your yeast. If your yeast is already at room temperature and your water's at room temperature, you may only need 1 minute. We don't want to cook our yeast and, therefore not get any rise out of our bread. So just on speed 1, 37 degrees, 2 minutes, and then we'll come back. Okay, so our yeast has warmed for 2 minutes at 37, and now we're going to add in the flour and the salt. Okay, so 500 grams. Okay. And our salt is always Murray River Pink Salt Flakes. I sell these on my website, so you can go and get some there. And they're fantastic. They're from South Australia as well. Something about South Australia, I think. And we're going to knead this. We're going to mix it first for 6 seconds, I think. 10 seconds, 10 seconds speed 6, just to get the flour into the water, and then we'll knead it. So off we go. So now we're going to knead it for 5 minutes. And this is because we're really working this dough. It's a very wet dough, and you need that gluten to really work so that it will pull together. So we're going to do 5 minutes on interval or kneading function. So our bread dough has finished kneading, and I'm going to show you really quickly what it looks like. It's very, very wet, loose dough. It's almost a batter. So if you can see that, it's quite runny. So we're going to let this rise in the bowl because this is a beautiful sealed environment. We're going to allow it to sit in here and rise for 10 minutes, and that's just to keep it, in a nice tight place. And then we'll whip it actually, and we'll whip it good. So we'll just let that sit there for 10 minutes and we'll come back. Welcome back. So our ciabatta dough has rested for 10 minutes in the bowl. So now we're going to really beat it. So it's, quite a high speed. We're going up to speed 9, and we're doing it for 3 minutes. And this is really to get that dough so that it becomes one piece, because at the moment it's very batter-like. So I've just put the timer on for 3 minutes, and then we're going to beat it good. So we've beaten the dough for 3 minutes on speed 9. Which is pretty full on, and it has now come together really well. I'm going to oil this glass bowl with just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and this is just to prevent sticking later so that it's easy to use. You can use a bit of paper or you can use your hand. Just make sure that's well coated. And we're going to tip this dough out. Now, you'll need a spatula for this, I think. So you can see how wet this dough is, and it's actually quite hot from the beating. So hopefully, we'll be throwing a lot of flour at this later when we add in all the flavours. So we're going to cover this with plastic wrap and let it rise for a good couple of hours, and then we'll shape it into our ciabatta loaves, and we'll add in a few different things. So come back soon. So our ciabatta bread dough has risen. You can see beautifully here. So just take that plastic wrap away. And we're going to form it into 3 loaves. Now the recipe that you've downloaded, I hope, has two, it has you dividing the dough into two, but you can divide it into three at the same time. It's just up to you how you do it. So we're going to use our silicone bread mat. These are available in my store. And if you don't have one, I highly recommend it. It just makes the whole process a lot easier, and one of these spatulas. We're going to use a lot of flour, and this is so that we can control the stickiness of the dough. And you're going to try and not touch it with your hands as much as possible, okay? So I'm going to use my silicone spatula, and again, go again. I've got 3 separate pieces, and now we're going to use our flour again. So heaps of flour, and that actually helps give you that really beautiful rustic look to your dough. I'm going to put on some salt as well. So I'll start with the one closest to my tray. So I've got a tray lined, ready to go. I've got my oven on preheat already because it really needs a very hot oven. So we'll make this one the plain one, the plain Jane, and you just literally pull it into the shape that you're happy with, the size, and then transfer it. So I'll get this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, and then we're going to, you know, the more rustic the better, to be honest. We're going to be quite generous with the salt on top and kind of push that into the dough, and that will give you a lovely little crunch on this just plain one. I might tuck those bits in so it's not too rustic. I love this bread, it's amazing. Okay, so we're going to make a pizza one, and we're going to make a fig, walnut and olive loaf. So I'll make the fig, olive and walnut loaf. Oh, see, it's already sticking to that. We'll make this one the pizza one. So this is a little bit smaller as well. So all you do is have your prepared ingredients. So these have been toasted, these walnuts. I might not use them all actually. And kind of toss it on to the dough. The figs also into the dough, and we're going to knead it in a little bit, and then the olives. Okay, so this is 50 grams of each. If you're just doing this as a third, you may not need that full complement. So I'm just going to kind of push it in, knead it in a little bit, because you do want to have the dough anchoring the ingredients somewhat. You don't want them just dropping out when you pull it apart. So sort of fold it over like that. Again, a little bit of salt. I'm going to transfer it over carefully, push it into shape, and as the dough rises and separates, you'll be able to see these pieces that we've included in the dough pop out, and you'll be able to tell which one is which. Last but not least, let's do our beautiful pizza ciabatta. Make sure you use all that flour. Now we've got for the pizza one, we're using parsley. We're using a lot of garlic because we can. Just kind of put that in there, push it in. It's so beautiful, this dough. I wish you could feel it. It just feels so just beautiful, so soft. Some cherry tomatoes that have been sliced in half lengthwise. Or these are grape tomatoes actually. And it doesn't matter if you get a little bit of juice on there, it's fine, that will add to the flavour. So in fact, using wet inclusions like this in your dough, you'll find that you might need to bake it a little bit longer, and that's specified in the recipe. And you just, you know, do it by look and by feel. Don't know if I'm going to get all of these in either. There we go. Some more olives, Kalamata olives. They're pitted obviously and sliced in half. And then we'll finish off with the parsley. And it's Italian parsley. The crew can't wait for this one to be done. We're all really hungry. And the rest of the garlic. Be generous. I think it looks better if you're quite generous. And then fold that over just a little bit, just to create a bit of anchor, okay? And again, we're going to transfer that across. This is the tricky part. This is where the real expertise comes in. Now watch it flop on me. Ah! Very difficult, that one, because it's so full of stuff. So pull the dough over, make sure you're sort of digging it into the dough. And like I said earlier, as the dough rises, that will help it. Now, last but not least on this one, we've got to give it a dousing of freshly grated Parmesan. You could use other cheese, but I think the Parmesan just really gives a lot of punch and it doesn't kind of go too stringy, which it's not a big deal, but you know, Parmesan's traditional for this. Okay, now we're going to let that rise approximately about another hour. So we're putting the ciabatta into the oven. It's set to 220, which is as hot as it can go. And we're throwing in a cup of ice and shutting that oven door as fast as possible. This will create steam, which gives you a great crust. So here we have our beautiful ciabatta times 3. So we've got the plain one here and our fig, walnut and olive ciabatta, and of course the pizza one, which actually kind of looks like a bit of a pizza going on there. Listen to this. This is the sound you want, a really nice crisp sound. And then let's layer on the cultured butter, shall we? Let me tell you, you need to go make this bread stat. It's so good. Enjoy.